Next speaker is our candidate for U.S. Senate, be introduced by the chairman, the Cobb County affiliate, Matt Goodallen.
I've been a big Libertarian since 2003, and during that time I've gotten to vote for a lot of great candidates. I've gotten to vote for Mr. Garrett Michael Hayes, Kevin Cherry, of course John Mons, David Chastain, and I'm very happy to say that the tradition continues with Chuck Donovan. He's a tremendous candidate. He's got a great resume, and one of the things that really stood out about him, he and I were talking one day about the campaign, what we're going to do, how we're going to make things work. And he said, somebody told me one time that Libertarian like to play this game called Who's the Biggest Libertarian in the Room? And I said, yes, we do that a lot. And he says, well, I don't want to play that game. I want to be the guy who shows up and says, you know what, I'm the Libertarian who's done the most to actually make things happen. And I said, and you're my guy, man, let me tell you. So I want to keep it pretty short. Chuck Donovan, come up here and tell us all about yourselves.
Microphones, but I usually have to hold it in my hand and talk to people behind me. How's that? Better? I'll just lean in a little bit. Thank you very much. Thank you to the executive committee, all the work you did, all the work that people who set up the convention did to make it happen. Thanks for that. It's such a pleasure to be here and see all these faces, familiar faces, new faces, all you champions of liberty. We did what it takes to get here today. I knew when I stood up here I'd be following John Mons and ahead of laying out en route. And John, you said something that made me think of the other night. I just saw John on Tuesday night at Darton College. And I noticed the reporter wasn't really looking for me. He was interviewing other candidates, but I kind of chased it. I felt kind of silly about it. And I thought he wasn't very respectful to me when he asked the question. He said, tell me about this libertarian thing. I wasn't really hopeful when I answered his question on tape, but son of a gun, the next night, the whole thing was on TV. We forced him to say libertarian, and we learned a lesson from that. It's a real pleasure to be on that list right there. All of these great candidates, and to actually hang out with guys like John Mons and maybe do something for liberty. I have a planned speech. My mental Rolodex isn't what it used to be. And for those of you who don't know, I'm an airline pilot, and yes, I use a checklist. Do not give in to evil, but proceed ever more boldly against it. Our government is out of control. Our dollar debased and now fiat currency. We remain engaged in perpetual wars internationally and domestically. We see one government department after another that cannot possibly do its job. One promise after another that cannot possibly be fulfilled. One entitlement after another that cannot possibly be delivered. And one bill after another that cannot possibly be paid. Do you see something to proceed boldly against? I saw it clearly myself when I left the mainstream parties and went looking for better answers than those being served up by the mainstream media. I always wanted fiscal logic, constitutionally limited government. I wanted business people to be allowed to make business decisions in a profit and loss system. I wanted a foreign policy that followed Jefferson's advice for peace and commerce and honest friendship to all and entangling alliances with none. I wanted our troops deployed only with a declaration of war, to be allowed to win their battles and then return immediately home. I wanted government with a law that applied equally to all Americans, with no exceptions. I wanted people allowed to make their own mistakes, learn from them, clean up their own messes, and then move on and use the potential I knew every one of them always had, always will have. I wanted the things I was taught as a boy to be made true. That if you follow the rules, you do the right thing, if you work hard, you'll have something to show for it. And if you work a little harder and a little smarter, you'll have a little more to show for it. I wanted those things, but I saw the country and the people that I loved were not achieving them. I watched the tug of war between conservatives and liberals, which only affected the speed, not the direction of the Bible. I saw that the mainstream had an unshaken faith in the state, and that all their solutions begin and end with government.